can start.
Shall I start, Sanjay?
Yes, sir.
Good morning. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. Thank you for joining us for webinar on industrial design and Indian craft. Today's session is part of webinar series being organized by Faculty of Architecture and Design, Manav Rachna International Institute of Research and Studies. Manav Rachna Educational Institutions, the brainchild of Dr. O.P. Bhalla, are a visible symbol of knowledge and experience, providing high-quality education in various fields of management, engineering, art and design, etc., and many more. I am Professor Colonel Sanjeev Gupta. I am Director, Faculty of Architecture and Design at Manav Rachna University. Now it is the time to introduce the esteemed panelists of the session. Firstly, the panelists kindly raise your hand once I take your name. Praveen Singh Solanki. He is an industrial designer with 16 years of international experience. Presently, he is a senior associate faculty with furniture and interior discipline at National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. He is also coordinator for Center of Bamboo Initiatives and International Center for Indian Crafts. He is a recipient of many international and national awards for innovative bamboo products. His works are on permanent display at World Bamboo Museum and published in magazines, newspapers, and on television. He offers sustainable workshops, is a known jury member for various competitions, and also a TEDx speaker. Mr. Amit Sharma. Mr. Amit Sharma, please. Yeah. Mr. Amit Sharma is an architect, product designer, artist, innovator, and an educator, having an experience of 20 years. He started successful ventures doing buildings, mobility solutions, and art installations, etc. He taught at many reputed institutes and has formulated design programs for a number of design schools in the country. He lives by the mantra, it is difficult to design, but easy to live with it. Next one is Professor Sanjay Surya. He is alumnus of SPA Delhi with 20 years experience. He specializes in landscape architecture and is an educator. He is presently head of the department, Faculty of Architecture and Design at Manav Rachna University. He will be the moderator for today's webinar. Architect Hitesh Kumar. Hitesh Kumar is alumnus of National Institute of Design, Ahmedabad. He is an architect, designer, and educator. He is presently working with Faculty of Architecture and Design as assistant professor. Now, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started for the webinar. If you have any questions during the session, please type them in the chat box. We'll bring them up during the presentation, and we'll also have time for the questions at the end of the presentation. Now, without further ado, we'll just turn the time over to Professor Sanjay Surya, moderator for the presentation. Over to Sanjay Surya.
Very good morning, sir, and good morning to all the panelists present in the webinar. As we see, Mr. M.N. Upadhyay in his book, Handicrafts of India, has beautifully described the craft and textile of the country. He said, to write about Indian handicraft is almost like writing about the country itself. So vast, complex, colorful, and yet with a simplicity and charm. Difficulty to attain under comparable conditions. If one gander at the country's craft and textile, they will amaze to see the magical world of art and textile inside the large universe of Indian craft. If you went on exploring the Indian craft from the foothills of Himalayas to Kanyakumari, you will find the colossal amount of variation. Whether it is Patola sarees of Patan, magnificent work of Gujarat and Rajasthan in the form of bandhani and tie-dye, heavy gold brocade sarees of Banaras, fragile Jamawar from Kashmir, or Kanchipuram silk from Tamil Nadu. all will make your eye pop out. Despite having such a rich culture, skill, and a talent, the biggest issue lie in the Indian market, which do not recognize the true value of this craft. As per the DASA report entitled Crafting a Livelihood, an estimated 7 million artisans, according to official figures, and up to 200 million artisans, according to unofficial sources, are engaged in craft production to earn a livelihood. It further stated that global market of handicrafts is $400 billion, with India's share below 2%, representing a tremendous growth opportunity. When Prime Minister Modi launched the Make in India campaign in 2014, the focus of the campaign was to compel national and multinational companies to manufacture in India, a vision which resonates with all of us. The focus is job creation and skill development, and the end objective is to make India a manufacturing and design hub. As Narendra Modi mentioned in his inaugural speech at Digital India Week, Make in India is as important, but design in India is equally important. And truly, design in India is a key catalyst for Make in India. I'll start with a small video.
अगर आईटी प्रोफेशनल्स हमारे दुनिया की आईटी कंपनियों में ढेर सारी मात्रा में भारतीय मूल के लोग नजर आते हैं, लेकिन क्या कारण है कि गूगल का इनोवेशन हमारे यहां नहीं होता है? क्या कारण है कि इनोवेशन बाहर होते हैं? डिजिटल इंडिया के माध्यम से हम देश के नौजवानों को इनोवेशंस के लिए आह्वान कर रहे हैं कि आप आइए, इस चुनौती को स्वीकार करिए। और भारत जैसे देश को सबसे पहली आवश्यकता है, जैसे मेक इन इंडिया का महत्व है, वैसे ही डिजाइन इन इंडिया भी उतना ही महत्वपूर्ण है।
Now I'll hand over the presentation to Mr. Hitesh Kumar to start on to it. Over to you, Mr. Hitesh.
Thank you. Good morning to all the panelists and the audience. Thank you for this opportunity. So first of all, since as the title suggests, we are talking about industrial design, and so for the non-designers in the audience, we'll just give you a brief definition what industrial design is. Basically, industrial design, the word comes from industry, which means anything that is mass produced. So what makes industrial design an Indian craft? So let's not confuse the title with us with the premise that we are actually bringing the two together. Actually, we are talking about the two of them in a separate light. For example, as an industrial designer, how do you work with Indian craftsmen, and how does that synergy give birth to something new? So, sir, next slide. So, what do you mean by the industrial craft today, in Indian craft today? Sorry. So, as Mr. Modi said, like why don't the innovations happen in India? But that is from a very technological, but going back a little, I would like to talk about the cultural aspect of this country. Like India as a country, in my personal opinion, is the most rich country in its cultural capital. And by cultural capital, we have all the crafts, all the vernacular techniques, and everything that we have. But slowly, what we are seeing is this cultural capital is on the decline year by year. So, can we have the next slide? And while we are talking about the decline, we also need to think about what is the collateral that we have at stake. Like what is the significance of this Indian craft sector? So in this, in the very recent context, when Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman announced that economic package for the country, in which they actually put in a lot of emphasis upon the MSME sectors of this country. And the MSME sectors, like the medium, small, and micro scale companies, many of them, in fact, a significant sector of them work with the craft sector. So if the government of India is trying to pump in so much money into the MSME sector of this country, which employs millions of craftsmen, and it has the potential of generating so much foreign capital for the country. So the onus comes on to the designers so that they can capitalize on that. They can capitalize on the cultural aspect of this country so that we stop looking at Italy or other countries for the design inspiration, and so that we start looking in our own backyard for the necessary inspiration. So next slide. So what is the designer's role in the revival of a particular craft? So for example, some craft is on the decline, but if we look at it, and why does a craft decline? Because most of these families work as a family unit. Like the father will be carving it, the son will be learning from him, the daughter and the mother will be painting something. So the whole family, they are the ones who's selling it, they are the ones who's making it. The family actually takes a very significant part in the whole process, end to end, right from the raw material to the final product. It happens in the same courtyard only. But what happens, what disadvantage does that give to them in the present context is that they are not able to, they have a sort of a disconnect with the contemporary market, and the market sets the damn game. Like if we talk about the market, the customer needs a contemporary this thing, and they want something that looks so to say cool, that is something that has a brag value to it. So it's onto the designers and how do they intervene in that particular capital, that particular technique, and how do we metamorphosize that thing into something that is very unique and special, which benefits the design, which benefits the crafts, gives a new life to his technique also, which has in a way has reached a certain point of stagnation, and benefits everybody in the loop. So can we have the next slide? So what is design intervention? Like basically design intervention is like design intervention can be pertaining to many situations. One could be to a particular design problem that we are intervening it in terms of that design, and we are proposing a certain design solution to it. The second situation could be you already have a certain process going on, and you come in the equation and start improving it. You start tinkering with it and create something new with what you already had. So in our context, the designer comes into the equation when the craftsman is struggling with the actual demand of his product or the technique. That could be pertain to certain factors, that maybe there is a lack of awareness. People don't know about the craft much now because nobody is buying it. Because nobody is buying it, nobody is interested in promoting it. So the whole market has a very symbiotic relationship with each other. So that's where the designer should come in, because right now everybody looks up to certain designers. You have these design influencers, these big shot designers who get published here and there. So they have a certain responsibility to what fame they have among the masses, so that people will listen to them, because people look up to them to know what is good design. So if designers are going to facilitate craftspeople, then they can be benefited by quite a good magnitude. So can we have the next slide? So we just listed out a number of design interventionists who are working throughout the country. Like in Delhi, Axiom India is working on a lot of innovations. Project 810 is working on a lot of innovations with certain craft techniques. In Jaipur, Ayush Kasliwal, he has been on the forefront of revival of Indian craft techniques and contemporization of them. Mr. Praveen Singh Solanki, who we have as a panelist also, and he was my actually he was my faculty and guide also when I was doing my masters in NID. And Rusha Shroff, who is in Mumbai, though he is certainly quite a recent addition to the Indian design scene, only the last 7 to 8 years. But he has been on the forefront, and he is working on so many different aspects of different craft techniques, and we'll talk about them further. Sandeep Sangaru has been on the forefront. He has worked with a lot of craft clusters, and on the Northeast also is not quite far behind on it. So we have Sonam Tashi, who's been working with local tribes to develop certain products. Sir, can we have the next slide? So the first is Rushad Shroff. He's Mumbai based. So he's an architect who did his BArt and MR from. He did his MR from, I think, Harvard GSD. So he came back to India. He's been working on a lot of aspects. He's doing an architecture and everything. But one particular aspect about his marble carving technique was he actually took the marble carving technique to its very limit. Like if we go to a marble carver, he knows only as much as his father has taught them, because these techniques are passed generation to generation. So, but when he started working with these people, he told them that I want to make a marble bulb. And just imagine, like if I were to tell any of you that I want to carve a marble bulb, which is going to be hollow from inside, and I'm going to illuminate it from the inside, most of you will be shaking your head, because all of us know how brittle a material marble is. So as a designer, he actually harnessed their creative energies and pushed it to the brink and gave birth to a very new kind of a product which is being loved all over. Like people should definitely look up his work. He's been working with this bulb. This is just one. Now he has even started making marble tube lights, and that is, in my view, even a bigger challenge, because it's becomes so fragile when you start elongating the whole form, as per se. So can we have the next slide? So Sandeep Sangaru. So in this particular chair piece, he worked with Pinjrakari and Khatamband craftsmen from Kashmir. He worked with walnut wood. So these two particular techniques were on the dying brink. Like the fathers had maybe sort of stopped. That's what they do basically. That they stop teaching these techniques to their future generation, because they think that if I'm going to face so many hardships because people are not buying these techniques anymore, my family is not going to have any future if I'm going to go on this particular path of still passing on this technique to my son also. So these are the certain factors which lead to the decline of certain craft techniques. But in this particular chair, he used this carving technique to develop a really beautiful back for the chair and really contemporize the whole piece. And people, this is exactly what we talk about when we talk about translating the whole technique into a new model, a new avatar, as so to say. So can we have the next slide? So Sonam Galson, he's a industrial designer from Sikkim. I personally met him at Raw Collaborative last year, where he had his pieces on exhibit. So this particular piece is a tea diffuser, and in all aspects concerned, in all parameters concerned, you can easily call it this piece as a zero energy product. And zero energy, like I think it's a carbon plus. It must be having a carbon footprint in plus, because he worked with the Chundaris. They are the local people there who live by the riverside. And how did they make it a zero energy, this thing? Because this is basically a lathe based tea diffuser. You only need a lathe machine in order to make this. And they harnessed the river's energy, the very river, in whose vicinity these people lived by. So they harnessed that river's energy to run that lathe machine and create this product. And they even used a wood which is locally sourced. So they don't even have to go very far in order to fetch it. And it's a very renewable source. So that's how you actually empower a particular community. And also, when you do that, you also are going to be very environmental conscious also. Like in this product, I see everybody to be in a win-win situation. So next slide, please. So when we talk about brass craftsmanship, I think everybody like who has read about design and who has even flipped through any design magazine AD, Decor or anything, everybody knows who Ayush Kasliwal is. And he actually put these marble, contemporized brass casting, brass hammering techniques to the forefront. And he made them in such a way that everybody wanted to have these pieces back in their homes. Like earlier, we used to have brass utensils, brass items in our home, but there came a certain time when these brass items were considered a very orthodox or a very old kind of a thing, that who's going to really have them in the house. Yeah, it doesn't look as cool or whatever. Like most of these items used to be very heirloom kind of a thing, like past, like घर में है 50-60 years से. So that's what it used to be. But now these contemporary forms, like this color stool, as you can see, it's a very Indian form, and the whole finishing technique is brass hammer. But when you look at it, nobody actually imagined it this before. But it has a sense of nostalgia to it. But still, you want to keep it in your house because it's look very new. So can we have the next slide? So now we talk about Project 810. Pritima Vadhva, she's also an ID alumni. So this particular piece is the part of the very first furniture range that Project 810 did, and I was a part of this design process because I did my graduation project with them. So this particular piece, like the whole brief that we have when we started off, so Pritima told us that I want to inculcate craft in this. I want to have some craft element. I want some contemporary manifestation of craft into my pieces. And we zeroed in on two techniques, like one was weaving and one was bone inlay. So if you see in the pictures, like you have this particular pattern that we developed, and we did started doing the bone inlay. But then when we got into the financials of it, we got to know that the bone inlay was turning out to be very expensive. So then we started looking for alternate materials. So then we started doing it in acrylic resin. So that's how we actually came to this. So now when we exhibited this in Raw Collaborative, like everybody was telling her that like it's something that they have never seen before in this particular fashion. Like everybody could related back to the bone inlay technique that we have, but nobody actually imagined it to be in such a new contemporary this thing. So can we have the next slide? So this bench is also a part of the same range. So then this they contemporize the concept of that particular khatiya that we have and that particular weaving technique. So even the people that sat on it, when that feeling of sitting on a khatiya was there, but it was there in form of a very contemporary sort of a bench. So can we have the next slide? So this was an academic project. I did this under the guidance of Mr. Solanki. Actually, he was the one who gave us this challenge. Like he actually picked up this wood, and this wood is actually the outermost piece of a bark you have, and that is the most useless piece. Otherwise, because when you take off the bark, like the outer bark, you have almost negligible amount of wood left. So he told us you have to do this. This is the piece, and we were very skeptical at that point कि सर इसमें तो कुछ भी नहीं है, इसमें तो लकड़ी पूरी कुछ भी नहीं है, इसमें करेंगे क्या? So he told us कि नहीं इसमें बहुत अच्छा होगा, and I think he was right when we actually started working on it. So me and my another friend, like we worked on it. So but it's not I'm mentioning this because it's not something Indian craft related, but it's related to the American Japanese craft movement. So it's basically about how you manifest a certain kind of a visual character onto a certain piece that you design. So can we have the next slide? So now we introduce Mr. Solanki. So can you take over? Will you take over from there?
Yeah, it was a very valuable insight about the industrial design and its current scenario. I would like to bring into the picture Mr. Solanki. Mr. Solanki, are you there?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Before Mr. Solanki began, I would like to run a video about his contribution to the field. Over to you, Mr. Solanki.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. And today I'm going to talk about my journey into the craft. So I'm passed out from NID, and before NID, I was working with architect Karan Grover for a long time. And coming to NID, I started working. My first job from NID was in Italy. So I learned a lot from Italians, okay, how to work with the craft. Because what has happened in India, you have wonderful craft. We are rich in craft and culture. But what happens is we do not have the standardization, we do not have the quality control, and a lot of problems are there on the policy level and also at the grassroots level also. So the product which needs to be sold at a good price, we are not able to get. The craftsman always has a problem because he always work for his own community, but they never come outside because they do not have either good design, quality, or a market. So after working for 6 years in Italy, when I came back to India, my core strength was basically furniture design. I'm doing more retail store design, so I design stores around the world. But when I came back to India, I understand, we need to do something with the craft. And craft is again a huge field. It's a huge area, right from textile to metal to wood to bamboo. So I thought of starting from very basic level. So what attracted to me was an hanger, because when I looked towards hanger, I saw all around the world that hanger remains as an hanger. There was no beauty, and it's very typical hangers I saw around the world. So that gave me a trigger, that gave me an opportunity. Why not take a hanger and take it forward? Because you will never find a luxury. Either your dress is of 30 lakhs or 6 lakhs. The hanger is the same. You buy it for 100 rupees or 200 rupees. The shop guy also gives you the same hanger. If you buy like for your own marriage suit, also your suit is 6 lakhs rupees, but your hanger is again a shit. So that triggers me. What should I start with? So I thought bamboo as let's start with bamboo, and this was my first hanger. I never call it as a hanger, but what I've learned from Italian is a netra. Again, if you talk about industrial design is about man, machine, and material. Right. So under man, you have design, market, and makers. Machines, you have got manufacturing and maintaining. Material, again, choosing the right material, application of material, sustainability, all this comes. So why again to go for plastic or metal? And bamboo is the second largest in the world. We are the second largest in the world in manufacturing of bamboo. Still, we do not have that many designers. At the same time, we do not have that product that we can flood around the world. So as a designer, as hands-on work, I just sliced a bamboo, and that came out with a beautiful form. Because again, design is all about, or industrial design is all about form, function, and texture and all. So I just made a slice cut of the bamboo and got this beautiful design called netra. Next slide. So how does it? People say, how do you put that? So if you talk in as a designer, you do not have a special hanger for scarf. You do not have a special hanger for ties generally. So this was especially designed, specifically designed for shawls or scarf or ties, and this adds beauty. It's what do you say? It's 100% sustainable because we are not using any glue to it. It is just a cut and beautifully naturally finished with a brush hook. Next slide. So what happens if you cut a slice through a bamboo knot? So as a designer, we keep on trying, doing like hands-on working with material, because material teaches you basically how. Sometimes you do not, something you cannot sketch it, something you cannot render it, but when you start working with material, material teaches you. So this was a cut through the knot, which I call it as a gufo. Gufo is another beautiful hanger, and this is again no glue. There is no glue. It is single piece. So that's the beauty of gufo. Next slide. And how do you put your stuff inside? So this series of Gufo Netra has got a lot of awards, international awards also, because it is one piece. It doesn't have any glue. It has got very simple manufacturing. So if you talk about all industrial design, we have tried to cover as many aspects into this, and you will not find another hanger same to this. So everybody wants a difference. No? Everybody do not want the similar hanger with your neighbor. So that is how it stands out different. Next. So how does it look? Because important is not only your product, but how do you take photograph of it? How do you present your work? That also makes a lot of difference. Next. So this one is again different hanger. Talking about if we have ergonomics, we have to work with ergonomics. How do you design it, keeping in mind body? Because ultimately that hanger is again a body. So this is a beautiful series. I call it as a bird series, inspired from duck. And my words, this baby pato is a Spanish word for a duck. So if you can see, both right hand side, left hand side is the same piece, right? So when I want to manufacture it, I have two components into this. So if I make two components, maybe from two different craftsmen, and there is another guy who is just assembling it, that makes the craft faster, that gives you quality, and a craftsman who is doing this job maybe 1 or 2 in a day, with this type of design they can do 100 to 200 hangers in a day, because it is more of a component design than a single piece. And I call it as a baby pato because it is a baby duck, and a baby duck always wants to be hyperactive, wants to explore, want to do like, I have a freedom. So this is baby pato, and next we go to pato. This is mother duck. So if you see mother duck, which is very confident, very strong, very protective. So in design or industrial design, how do you build a story also? And if you see the form, it talks about a duck, that the wings are open. But if you talk about the manufacturing side, it has got again two components again here. There is one like an O and second O, triangle O, and one handle is there, which makes your manufacturing very fast. So this is also an award-winning hanger. This is pato. Next. So how does it look like in a wardrobe? So generally what happens is, when somebody comes, you try to hide your wardrobes because it is always unorganized. But when you have a beautiful product like this, you get organized. So it is not only a product, but it also help you to organize your wardrobe. Next. Next. So how does it look in wardrobe? So yeah, it is like it looks beautiful, and you will agree to it. Like mother and the baby are enjoying the wardrobe. Next. This one is Chisne, again inspired from a swan. All my names are basically inspired from either Spanish or from Italy, because I lived for a long time, and always name matters a lot. So this one is Chisne, and this is a swan, and Very easy to put your fabric onto the top. It has got a long neck, so even if you are shorter, it helps you to put it easily. Next, this is Bamingo. So it is like a bamboo and a flamingo fused together. So when we go for exhibition, most of fashion designers and all, so you want to keep at a very height if you're putting your dress on a height, or when you have tucked your shirt inside your pant and you go back to keep your hanger, your shirt little bit come outside. But if you have Bamingo with you, it gives you an extra height to put your back to your wardrobe, and the shirt doesn't come out. So this is Bamingo, again a bird inspired hanger. Next, this one is again a monolithic, once crafted from a single piece, and I call it as a moss stitch. My love towards moss stitch as a coming from a Rajput family, and this is having 2 knots on the either sides. And I say my hanger speaks it is made for what. So it is made for suits, it's for salwars, or you have coats, because that macho-ness talk about the hanger. So this is also one piece, no glue, and 100% sustainable. Next, this one is again a very tricky name I have given, twist. So generally when I ask people how it is made, I do a lot of presentation around the world, or I travel different countries and I ask how this is made. People generally relate, okay, you have taken a bamboo, taken a piece, and then you have heat bended it, but it is not done. It is just the way you cut a bamboo. It is about your understanding of material and the way of cutting a bamboo. So this is also one piece, no glue. Finish is again natural finish, and we have a brass hook. So basically brass hook can give a long life. So I can use a bamboo hook also, but again when we talk about a life, brass hook gives you a better life. So we do not want to, like, no, on the name of sustainability, want to give something which doesn't last long. So this one is a twist, very beautiful. It has very beautiful form and very successful hanger. Next, this one is gondola. This has glue. It is made out of again 4 pieces. 4 pieces are joined together. A bit complicated piece, but sometimes you need to come out with an idea which people also require a beautiful design who doesn't have a problem with cost. So this is a gondola and a very beautiful, very ergonomically designed hanger. Next, this one is Siliqua. So when I at NID, or my house is in jungle. So when I walk on the jungle, I find lot of Siliqua, like जो मूंगफली टाइप क्या बोलते हैं उसको, एक जो हम लोग खाते हैं वैसे एक सिंग होती है, सिंग जिसके अंदर बहुत सारे दाने होते हैं, तो वो सूख जाने के बाद हवा में उड़ती रहती है. तो see, generally I have not done anything to this hangers. Bamboo was also there from all these years. ठीक है, हैंगर भी बहुत सारों से लोग यूज कर रहे हैं, मेटल, प्लास्टिक, right? Lot of people are using hanger, but the idea of changing the craft, the idea is about bringing that bamboo into a life. That is a designer's role. Otherwise, if you see, you people also can do it, because it kya hai, I've taken a split of a bamboo or I made a ton and that's it. But the way it has given a form, the simplicity I was able to bring, that is the beauty of the material, and it is of the mind. This is, I call it as a Siliqua, a very lightweight hanger and very easy to transport. And all my hooks comes out. So when I do packaging, it has got minimum air space to travel. Next. So see the simplicity, the beauty when you keep it inside your wardrobe. Next. Again, Zero. This is again no glue hanger. Beautiful piece. I say this is again an award-winning hanger. This doesn't have any glue. It is again chopped out of bamboo. So the idea is, where is the money? Like, why people pay designer? Because it is about an idea. It is about a thought. It is about a design thinking. So bamboo भी था, सब कुछ था, लेकिन एक सोच So what I've created, what I've learned from Italians is to be to do minimal work, to try to cut off the process, because जितना process कम करोगे उतना time कम होगा, ज़्यादा production होगा, simple चीज होगी उसको polish करना easy हो जाएगा, and people will love it because then it will not have any barrier of it has to be like a universal design, or it has to be like a globally people should love it. So I call it as a zero. Zero is again a zero in English, and it's a beautiful piece crafted from bamboo. Next. So you see, it's the beauty of keeping it. No, यहाँ पे कुछ भी नहीं है, नहीं bending है. Yes, it's about it. It's art of cutting. So in design, generally what happens is and also what happens in India, I work a lot on sustainability, on not only bamboo, but I work on a lot of material. What I'm presenting today is because we are related to craft. Generally, before bamboo comes to you, people chop off the branches, and this branch is either thrown off or used for burning. So it really pains me as a designer. So when I work with clusters in different parts of India, and when I see the branches being chopped off, it really hurts me. And how do you challenge yourself as a designer? Okay, how to use this? And even your knots, people just throw the knots. So when I was working in with a cluster in Madhya Pradesh, and when these people are throwing off, this was my first hanger I created using my own hands. Okay, take off the knot, and how can I use the two branches of bamboo, and I put it together, and it gives a beautiful form. And for manufacturing also, it is very, very easy, because you give one guy, you just cut a branch of this size, of this diameter, and you don't use your brain, just keep on cutting. And one person just focus on the knot and drilling of the process. If you see, it is cutting and just drilling. There is no other process involved. So we have also gone beyond this. Okay, if you buy, I think I have got the smallest hanger possible in bamboo. It comes out. So all the two branches comes out, the knot comes out, the hooks comes out, and it becomes very compact. So when we ship something, when we transport something, we are transporting not airspace, but the pure product. So this is my antenna, because antenna is again, if you see an ant, always navigate themselves. Or if you see a TV antenna, so that is how I have given a name, antenna. Next. So a little bit addition after that, because the previous antenna can only carry a shirt. It cannot carry a sari or a dupatta or a pant. So this is kasa, and again it is like for house. So it is for a complete house. If you are having pants, if you're having a suit, if you're having a shirt, you can put it, and completely made out of material which is thrown off. That is a designer role, and that is how a designer has to bring value to what people do not understand. So the process is simple, the manufacturing is simple, and you are using something which makes it sustainable, which makes it compact. Next. So sometimes as a designer, we force material to do like this, because a designer also has an ego, a design also has an ego, and we try to solve that ego. Has to be like. To bend hook. So here I thought of fusing two material. Hook, I can do it in metal, a simple wire, 3 mm wire you take, you make a hook, and very beautifully it is like welded. So when you buy a hanger, your hook comes separate and your two sticks come separate. Again, it is a compact and very easy DIY hanger. Next, and it's called fly. You just fly with that. It's very easy. And little bit more addition to two curves. I made it like a cuddle. So cuddle is like, no, किसी को आप hug करते हो, किसी को आप प्यार करते हो. So that completely unites. So there are basically, if you see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 components are there. Either you can make it DIY, either you can fix it, but there is nothing force done to a bamboo. Wherever I'm taking the raw material, that is also thrown away. If I make the same manufacturing unit in Northeast or wherever these branches are available, you can make 100% sustainable design. So it is about a fusion. This is my fusion series, which has got metal and bamboo, hollow bamboo. Next. So what I've tried to do in this, my fusion series, my stick remains the same. And my design intervention is only on the hook part. So I focus more on 2 hooks. And when I started designing hangers, we always go for inspirational images. You look for that. And generally, I take inspiration and try that. I do not follow them because I want to be different. I want to follow the material, follow my craftsman, and follow the material which is available in India. And that gave me a trigger, that gave me a challenge to develop new product. So generally what happens at this age, people go to the Pinterest, go to Google image, try to look for Google image, and either you copy the image or try to do substitute of the image. So that is what I learned from Italians, is how do you learn from material. Whatever one material cannot do, try to fuse another material which can take that. Next. So if you see knot, hug, cuddle, all these are the same family, same sticks is there. So we have got 9 inches by 9 inches sticks there, and you plug in to your different hooks. So it becomes DIY, it becomes compact, and it becomes beautiful. Next. So Triangulo is again a multifunctional, a universal design where you have again 4 components in total. So manufacturing wise, you have got bamboo, you have got a plug to fix it, and then you have got a hook. And very easy, because the whole problem in craft is the quality control, the sizing, the day production. So we are not able to do that. So keeping in mind all that factors, I came out with this designs, and Triangulo is very successful in hangers. Next. This one is again a very, very beautiful piece. So almost 4 to 5 of my hangers are in the World Museum now, because they stand in unique. They really talks about material. And if you see bamboo has got a property of plastic, it has got a property of wood, it has got a property of steel. So how do you fuse all these properties and come out with a product? So this is my look, and very beautiful for suits and blazers, and is very successful. So I've done like a display. So people generally, what happens is people do the display of work on your fabric, right? If you are a fashion designer, you have your fashion show going on around the world in Paris and all that. I'm not a fashion designer. I just design hangers like this. But I have done a lot of shows around the world with my hangers. So I've done a show in Paris, I've done in London, I've done in Mexico, I've done in South Korea, I've done in Germany, I've done in there's a place near Mauritius, Reunion Island. So we should not feel designing small products. And a small product like hanger has given me a lot of fame, because this is what my original ideas, the original material of our country, and this is what our Prime Minister wants: design in India, make in India. So that is how we came out with different ideas. Next. So you can see how do you present also, because presentation also makes a lot of difference. Next. So this one is trachea. Trachea is again a very simple bamboo strip. You take out a strip of bamboo and you make this. So again, it is a universal. You can hang it and you can use shirt also. Next. Colungo, generally I made it because I was living in Italy and I used to attend a lot of exhibitions. And in fashion, people want something, you don't want to see your pipes and everything, you just want to address your garments. So I designed Colungo for especially people who wants to do exhibitions or fashion shows, and they look for a design like this. This was not existing. So a Colungo means a long neck. Again, it's an Italian word and very simple design, but how do you little bit tweak your ideas? Next. So I have got again a huge range of hangers, but because of the time constraint, I'm not putting all. My show was to be there on 18th September in Taiwan, design, keeping up 100 bamboo hangers. So I have a complete range of different hangers, beautiful fusion. Again, I'm combining a lot of craft from all over India into my hangers, making it unique. So you're looking for a glass hanger, I have it. You're looking for a brass hanger, I have it. You're looking for a metal casted hanger, I have it. If you're looking for complete hand painted hangers, I have it. So what I'm trying to do is all our states, how do we put into the hanger? And that is how university, what do you say, there is unity and diversity is there. It is again, it talks about a hanger. So as a sustainable designer, or as I do not want to throw anything, I just collected all the knots. Little bit I have given like no small rivet to it, a small frame of your beak is given, a wire added, and your birds are ready. So these are my birds. It is tweet, like a tweeter, and these are also very successful, displayed in Germany and in Paris also. Next. So if you see all the pieces, like generally when we make a lot of furnitures, so when we make furniture, that these are all leftover, people throw it off. So this again triggered me how to put little bit of design element inside and craft, because for a craftsman you need to earn money, not doing very complicated job, because when you do complicated job, it takes time, the money part, economical also increases, and there are very few buyers. So I wanted to balance both. Okay, men, women, both can work into the craft segment. Next. This is again an award-winning sound enhancer. It is called tambour. Tambour is basically a drum in South India. And this is one piece, again monolithic. So if you go on Google, you will find a lot of bamboo enhancers. People just copy paste everything. You cut a bamboo or you make a slot and put your mobile inside and say, oh, my bamboo hanger is a bamboo sound enhancer is there. But when you love a material, then you love the material. So when you love the material teaches you, oh man, I have got a knot. Would you like to use the knots? So here I have taken a 3-inch of bamboo and I have taken the inter knots and beautifully turned. कुछ भी नहीं किया है मैंने. So it's a one single piece. There is no glue to it. It is just a cutting process. It is just a turning process. And when you put your mobile inside, it gives wow music. If you're doing a yoga or you do not want any electronic gadgets near to you, electrical points, then you just have your mobile, put it inside, and it sounds. Next. This is Sarah. Sarah is, because when you preach, you need to practice. So as an educator, I do a lot of courses with my students and always inspire them to do something different out of the box. Do not go onto the Google and do the same like copy pasting work or inspirational work. So Sarah is again one piece of bamboo, beautifully cut, crafted, and it is meant for keeping wine and glasses. Next slide. So Medha Gupta was the designer. She was my student. And during my course, so this is when you practice and when you ask your student to design. This has got a lot of awards, Sarah, because in Christmas this can be a wonderful gift, sustainable, and people would love it. Next. So this was my South Korea visit with one of my colleagues from NID. And we do a lot of designs. So all our major designs, if you see, it's all knocked down or either stacking or folding. Next. So what, as a mentor and as the same material, because if you are a mentor, if you're working and you have got a global exposure, how do you make your students inspire? So this was another course on bamboo, which we got a 10,000 US dollar as a prize money for a competition. So this was to design a coat hanger, and Anirudh Biswas got this. This was a world award for, and the prize money was 10,000 US dollar. So this is the strength of the courses which I offer. Major course, if you write on Google Praveen Solanki or awards at NID, you will find a lot of students like major awards has gone to the courses which I offer on sustainability. Next. Thank you so much. And I've got a lot of things to show, but we have got very limited time. And thanks a lot to now Manav Rachna University to give this opportunity and to project my work and inspire students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Solanki. It was a valuable insight, and really, as a handyman of India, we would like to see more and more in the coming up years. And good luck from our side. Now I'll introduce our next panelist, Mr. Amit Sharma. Amit Sharma is a renowned architect and a passionate designer and a good friend of mine. Over to you, Amit.
Thank you, Sanjay. I'll just try and share my screen. Just a minute. I've prepared a very small presentation on my understanding of industrial design and craft. So just trying to open that. Are you able to see the screen now? No?
Not right now.
Okay. So there's some issue. Yes. Can you see it now? Can you see the screen now?
Not visible. Now it will come. Okay. Yeah.
Is it there?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay. So Professor Solanki took us through a very nice journey of how he has worked with a certain material and been able to sort of define or redefine the material and its usage. And it was very heartening to see that somebody could be so dedicated to one material and craft and take it to the next level. And that's precisely why it is so important for us to understand product design as just not industrial design is just not something in isolation, but in connection with craft. So the first question I really constantly keep asking is, how different are industrial design and craft? The only answer I get is the only answer I get is craft combines the means with the end and are useful in everyday sense. And they're also aesthetically satisfying, whereas industrial design usually facilitates a more superior kind of a product experience. Also, one feels that industrial design is more about trying to create some mass so that you can say sell. Julia, is the screen visible?
Yes, sir. Yes, your screen is visible. Go on.
Visible. Also, I feel the major difference is when I look at craft, every product that comes out of the process is unique, whereas in product design, they are primarily identical. So when I look at both these processes, what really comes out to me is craft at the end of the day has something called the human touch. It is warm, and I am able to feel sort of in one with the product, primarily because also it is very the materials that I used are very, very, very good to touch. They are not cold. So the next question I ask myself is, what is a good design? And the answer I get is there are some very important attributes to a good design. It should be innovative, useful. It should be aesthetically pleasing, unoffensive, very honest. Should always be durable. The detailing and the product both should be very consistent. Environmentally, it should be responsible. And like Mr. Sin's works, it should look very least designed. So the design should it should not look too designed. Also, every product should look self-explanatory. You don't have to explain why, how, the process, the narrative. It should talk to you. I feel both the industrial design and the craft processes fulfill these criteria. Of course, the craft gives weightage to some components, whereas the industrial design process gives weightage to some other components. The challenge, however, lies in bringing the two together. And I think once the two are brought together, the product goes beyond the process. You know, once you have got a very beautiful product in front of you, nobody really is bothered about whether it came through a process of craft or it came through a process of industrial design. That can only happen when we are able to take off from the strengths of one another. You see, craft has got certain strengths. It also has certain weaknesses. One of the weaknesses I feel in craft is that at the end of the day, I cannot produce too many. Whereas product design or industrial design also has its strengths. The strength is that I can produce a lot. What I lose out there is sometimes the quality, sometimes the human touch. And I think that these two can be traded off. One can buy from the other, one can borrow the strength of the other. And what would be interesting is also to minimize the effort in the transition from one to the other. So I feel that at the end of the day, it is not important for me to categorize a product into the craft or the industrial segment. It could be both. No, at the end of the day, for me, the product should relate to me, and as I said, it should take care of those 10 criteria that we talked about. The line is very thin. Over my whatever periods of travel abroad and in India, I traveled extensively, and the one thing that I realized was, at times it becomes very difficult for you to figure out whether the product came out of craft or industrial design. Now, if you look at the three pictures that I've shown, the top one is, of course, from the Bauhaus. It's an industrial product, but you know, Bauhaus itself was a movement where they were trying to bring in craft into the building industry. The second one is a wrought iron piece, which is very beautifully crafted. It's in Naples. The third one that you see, the light, it's actually industrial design. It's a product design, and this illuminates most of the streets in Paris. And if you really look at these, the line becomes really, really thin, or at times it also diminishes. So I'd really quickly like to talk about Bauhaus. And you know, before the Bauhaus, there was the Industrial Revolution that had taken place, and after that Industrial Revolution, there was this whole effort at sort of revitalizing or reviving the arts and craft movement, and that actually sort of manifested itself in Bauhaus, where Gropius and Meyer, they all came together and they wanted to do something to sort of marry the craft and the industrial processes together. Sometimes, merely because it is used to looking product to enhance its perceived value against industrially produced items. Now, this is something that sort of troubles me at times. Nowadays, we are living in a time when brand, where stamping, all these things matter a lot. And I've seen a lot of products which come from, especially from Europe, which has a mark called crafted in Italy or crafted in Paris, you know. And at the end of the day, when you see very carefully, there's actually no craft in it, you know. So I think it's now also become sort of a fad to carry craft as a stamp. Now, this is something that we need to sort of do away with. And it's not very difficult. We've just seen our previous presenter. He's done a fabulous job with his creations. So it's not really a very difficult task to do this. Craft or industrial design are not limited to any material. So again, as my previous presenter was talking about materials, I have worked quite a bit with metals. I worked a lot with plastics. Now, plastics for sometimes plastics is taken as a non-responsible material. I'm not sure if it is, because when I compare some plastics to terracotta, I feel plastic is better at times. So what we have done is we've experimented with materials and we've experimented with techniques. There are a lot of craft techniques which can be applied to new materials also. So we've tried doing that, and at the end of the day, we feel that a good design will adapt very easily to craft or to industrial design. So I think if you can really understand the process of industrial design or the process of craft and design accordingly, the product will manifest easily through both. So what are the main challenges that I see craftsmen have compared to industrial design? Craftsmen are not able to produce in bulk, number one. Number two, when they start producing something only through their hands, it becomes slightly more expensive, or if they can't sell it at that price, then they are not able to earn much money. So what I realized was there's something called batch production, which is something between mass production and craft. Now here what happens is you whittle from craft and along industrial design and put it together. And I'm going to, in the presentation, I'm going to also show you a 2.5-minute video on Russian dolls, on how they're made and how the two are married together, the craft and industrial design. So there's another technique where we talk about lean manufacturing, where it could be the answer to sort of getting the two together. Here, what we do is Tango and Taichi Ono or start implementing in the Toyota factories in 1930s, and one of the reasons they, unlike their predecessors, were not only look play this video. I'm not sure if can you see the video?
Yes, sir, we can see the video.
Okay.
Russia, like the nesting doll or matryoshka. Russia produces around 1.2 million of these iconic sets every year. The process of crafting them has been a closely guarded secret until now. So, how do they do it? Each nest is carved from a single block of wood. The true story, however, is much more interesting. The outer dolls are handmade by this army of woodworkers. And like the dolls they craft, the carvers just keep on coming. Armed with a series of sharp blades, they shave and shape the blanks with incredible precision. The challenge is to make both ends of a doll marry together, as if they were born from the same piece of wood. In order to ensure this, they first carve out the top and then use it to mark out the correct dimensions on a second blank, using friction to burn a line in the wood. To complete the illusion, the two halves are then tooled and sanded as one. The team handcraft thousands of dolls per day. But even with all their craft skill, they can't carve out the smallest dolls. The answer is the company's patented carving machine. It's a marvellous mini Matryoshki production line. 4 razor-sharp blades carve a doll from a wooden blank in under 1.5 seconds, delivering 2,000 of these tiny wooden babies in an 8-hour shift. With the carving complete, it's time for these dolls to be given some character in the paint shop. The workers treat the wood with a good helping of potato paste, the natural equivalent of a modern-day primer. The workmanship is so precise that it looks machine-painted, but in this workshop, a 40-strong paintbrush battalion complete 3,000 Matryoshki per day by hand. Finally, in order to protect the paintwork from wear and tear, it's given a coat of lacquer. Like the potato paste, it's made from natural ingredients and safe to apply by hand. At last, they're ready to be packed up and shipped out to souvenir shops from Moscow to Miami, Brasilia to Bangkok.
So at the end, I would really like to say that no one questions the process if the product is good. And I feel that ultimately what happens in the market. Am I audible?
Yes, I'm audible.
Okay. So what ultimately happens in the market is people have got a perceived idea of there's a preconceived notion of what is craft. Now, if you are able to fulfill that, then it sells as craft. Now, the problem is there are some people who would stamp, as I said, and then there are some people who would be very, very purist in trying to do craft. But I feel that there's a middle path. When I look at the Matryoshkis and the success that they've had, I feel that they have very, very cleverly borrowed wherever required from industrial processing, and still keeping the inherent values and the inherent, say, soul of the product alive as a craft piece. So my closing statement on this is that I really would like to see more and more of marrying of the two, to make the entire craft revolution or the entire craft, I don't say. It has to really come out of that small domain and sort of embrace technology wherever possible, without sacrificing the inherent qualities of the craft. That's all. Surya, Sanjay.
Thank you, Amit, for the valuable insight. Now I'd like to bring into the picture Mr. Dinesh Bhardwaj. He would like to throw a light onto the Indian craft and Indian industry as well. Mr. Bhardwaj, over to you. think Mr. Bahadur is not available right now. Is it time to take a question and answer? Mr. Solanki, the first question is, how do we create a connection between designer and the craft itself?
Sanjay, who's this? Who's going to answer this?
I'll ask each one of you. First is Mr. Solanki. Mr. Solanki, can you hear me?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How do we create a connection between designer and the craft itself?
See, if you are a designer, let me tell you that it is in India that a person designs, renders, and gives somebody else to do it. But if you see in abroad, the person itself is a craftsman. So
Yes.
if you want to be a true designer, means you preach, practice, and you like from design to production, he is taking care of it. Then mass production is fine that you have got 20 people to work for you. But a designer itself is a first craftsman, because then only he understands, he make first prototype. Yes, there are few craft which you need to, you cannot master that craft, but at least your own first prototype, your first idea from concept, you create yourself first. So in abroad, because I've been in Italy, and there you have to make by yourself. Correct. So there is no person that he will make from a drawing and it becomes so expensive. So you create everything by yourself, you make, and then you do the costing, you do everything, and then you go to the market and say, oh, this is the piece, anybody can make it.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question is for Amir. Mass production is the biggest issue in Indian crafts. How to go about it, solving that issue?
So, Sanjay, it's very simple. As I told you, I would not, I don't see craft going the mass production way anyways. I see craft going the batch production ways. I myself have been producing souvenirs for the last 5-7 years now, and we do batch production. Now, what happens in batch production is your inventory and your tooling costs are very low, very, very low compared to mass production. I'll give you a very simple example. If I want to cast a small product, a souvenir in resin or in clay, for batch production, I can also do a silicon die. But if I was to do mass production, I will certainly have to look at a metal die. Now, a metal die, tooling for a metal die can run into lakhs, whereas a silicon die just costs me a couple of thousands of rupees. And what also happens is every batch is unique, because no two dies, when we are creating our dies, no two dies are exactly the same. So what happens is, maybe if I produce 5,000 pieces today, 2 months later when I produce those 5,000 pieces again, they'll not be exactly the same. So I think that is probably the right way to go. Look at batch production as your strength, not mass production. And batch production, let me tell you, can also fulfill a lot of numbers, 10, 15,000, 20,000. It works. Also, in some cases where most of the production is happening through castings, for example, there again batch production becomes very easy, because then the pattern that you're making, these are all handmade patterns, these are all done by craftsmen. So the pattern that you're making again will be unique. So there again, the productivity is very high. Yes, so batch production is my advice. Batch production is good.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Solanki, the next question to you is, all your products are very innovative and looks niche in the market. Who's the end user, and how do you compare it with the normal plastic in terms of quality, costing?
Can you be louder? I cannot hear your voice. Hello.
My question to you is, who's the end user of your product, and what is the cost factor for the consumer?
See, my end users are again all humans. It's meant for them. and I have got a classification. So I have got product which is one hanger costs 50 euros. So that is meant for German market, and there are buyers who buy this for 50 euros. And at the same time, I have got minimum of costing around 350 for a hanger. Correct. So because it is crafted, it takes time, and if again you take craft again as a cheap product, then there is no value to it. So you cannot go to that level also that people start not respecting your product. If somebody wants to go for cheap, their plastic is available for them, wire is available. So we also have, as a designer, we have to make a pyramid. This is meant for only this people. People cannot afford, go for plastic, option is available. Correct. People who believes in sustainability, people who wants to go for it, then only my craftsman will earn. If I go for 100 rupees for a dozen, it is not meant for that. But yes, what I can assure you is that it is going to live a long life. Once you even throw it off, it is going to be with the earth.
Can I say that? Can I say something there?
Yeah.
So this is where I felt that craft lost out, and just to add to this, that before the Industrial Revolution took place, I remember all the pots and pans were made by hand and everybody could buy it. But after the Industrial Revolution, the pots and pans became very expensive to buy, the handmade pots and pans. The ones you could buy were only the industrially produced ones. So what happened? This is where my point comes in, that we need to probably embrace industrialization a little bit more into craft and reinforce the craft with a little more of the speed that comes from industrialization. See, the same craftsman who's earning 500 rupees making one piece a day can make 10 pieces a day with a little more of industrialization and earn 5,000 rupees, and thereby now you can reduce the cost of your end product because you don't still need to pay 5,000 rupees to the craftsman. You'll pay maybe 1,000 instead of 500. So at the end of the day, the product cost can be reduced in the market, and craft can be available. If you go to Delhi Haat, I'll give you a very interesting example. If you go to Delhi Haat, there are these very small god figurines, and these are basically cast pieces. They're casting it in sand cast. It's basically sand cast pieces. But then I asked him, and then I realized that these are not sand cast pieces anymore. They've got small dies, and they're producing these Hanumanjis and Bhagavatis in those castings. And these are, I'm talking about miniatures, and it's for 50 rupees. If you go to a craft shop on Janpath, one of those items is going to cost you 500 bucks, 600 bucks, because they say it is handcrafted. Now, if you look at the two, they look identical. So my point is that I don't want to take anything away from craft or give anything else to industrial design. I'm just saying that we need to come to a middle path where craft can be made available to most of the people, if not everybody, most of the people. Today it has become the domain of the rich or people who can afford. See, I can't afford buying a 350 rupee hanger. I need about 300 hangers in my house. I'm a family of 8. So my point is, maybe I should work with Dipesh, and maybe I should try and convince him to sort of bring in a little more industrialization to his product so that I can buy his hanger at 100, because I love his hangers. So you can imagine passing through the show window, being able to see his hangers and not being able to buy them because they're expensive.
Correct.
No,
So
just Amit,
that's my take on craft and industrialization. Yes.
That's
I just like to say here is, you see what I will tell you a fact, what has happened in India. If you see, bamboo all these years was considered as a tree, as a wood, And after Sri Narendra Modi came, he declared bamboo as a grass. Can you imagine all these years what was happening in the country? The bamboo was banned to cut. You cannot cut bamboo because it was a wood. In 2015, they declared कि अब ये grass हो गया है.
Dipesh, what is interesting is somebody like you can take it to the base of the pyramid. That's what I'm trying to say.
Let me finish. The thing is, because it grows in a particular area now. So if I have to get a bamboo in Ahmedabad, it has to be transported. But see, it has to be made a change at the policy level, or I have to leave my job and I have to go and sit in Northeast, and then I have to do production where my bamboo is in my field, my factory is in the same field, and I directly sell from there. Then only it can go down, because first is we do not have the quality raw material bamboo. Then we need to treat it. Treatment is very important, because our whole the cultivation is only a problem. The way we cultivate bamboo, it was not organized. People ने क्या bamboo क्यों करना है? ऐसे ही डाल दो. So now things is getting awareness. So once we get raw material in a better price, we can always correct the prices.
Okay, great. So see, we are already talking about organizing the sector through industrialization.
True.
Yeah.
Well, India is a very diverse country, and the craft varies every 100 kilometers. Indigenizing everything and industrializing everything would be job of you as a designer and as a production manager. So a lot need to be done from designers end. So what's your take on that, and how do you correlate with Make in India policy?
Sanjay, there is a very interesting thing. I've been a practicing architect now for 25 years, and from day one, we have been trying to use as much of Indian craftsmen as possible in whatever we do. I'll give you a very interesting example. Some 15 years back, we were doing a very large exhibition shed, and we had to do tie rods. And we were told to go and buy tie rods from England. When I went to Macala Rods, they told us it takes 5 months to deliver, because first they procured the steel from Tata Steel. From Tata Steel, the steel goes to Macala Rods in Macalloy Rods in London, and then it is processed there and got back. So all I had to do was understand the processing, then get back to my own people here and then explain them that this is the processing. And let me tell you, a Macalloy rod, which was 180 pounds a rod, a tendon, which is 18 millimeter rod of steel, we bought and created here at 3,000 rupees. So I'm just trying to say we can do everything that outside we can do in our own country. We just need to understand the processes, and like Dipesh said, every designer first needs to become a craftsman. If you cannot understand the material and the process yourself and cannot execute it yourself, you cannot expect anybody else to do it. And Dipesh has touched the nerve. Even today in our education system, most of the children have become theoretical about their education. You need to train them in hands. Made in India or designed in India can be successful only if I am good at what I do with my own hands first. It's that important. Dipesh, I'm sure you'll agree with this.
Mr. Solanki is sitting in a temple of design, and his role as a designer and as an educator plays a big role in shaping the future of the country. So what's the role of a institution in highlighting the craft as a product of the next generation?
So your question is, what is the role of an institute in development of craft?
As a product of next generation.
See, institute make a lot of difference, because institute has got a network, right? if you see a student doesn't have a network, so institute, because of the years and years, they've got a good network, they know craftsmen. But what is happening is the student goes to a craftsman, he learns everything, but he never gives back anything. So their institute role comes that how can we create a design where they can start living livelihood, the craftsman gets something, because I also travel in different craft segment and different places. Always the craftsman tell के हाँ बच्चे निफ्ट से आए थे कि NID से आए थे कि कहीं से भी आए थे, हमारे पास आके डॉक्यूमेंट बना लिया, सीख लिया, वीडियो बना लिया, चले गए, हमारा क्या? Correct. So we as a institute has to inspire student to become more entrepreneur, start developing small product which has to be produced, like they have to live for 6 months with the craftsman, develop small product, and certain level of thing. Institute also has to have their own design, store or something where they can start selling. Generally what happens, a designer give a design to a craftsman and then they expect that craftsman should sell. Craftsman cannot sell your design because वो बेचारा गांव में हाट में बेच सकता है, आपका डिजाइन नहीं बेच सकता है वो. तो a student has to take initiative, a institute has to support a student, maybe fund him, and that designs whatever is produced, it has got good quality, branding is there, packaging is there, and then it has to come to the city or wherever your institute is, and then it has to start selling. You cannot depend on craftsmen that wo bechega.
I agree completely. Sanjay here, and I'll give you a very interesting example. All over Europe, most of the design schools have got their own design shops. So whatever the students do actually ends up in those design shops. From there, either the industry picks it up or the craft industry picks it up. The relevant industry picks it up from there. So there's this very interesting. It's a must. I feel that that's what we are missing out.
In fact, that's what we are aiming to do in our Bachelor of Design programs. We would be setting up a design lab in our institute on these principles.
Second thing I would just like to add is that our students are sitting more in the studio in air conditioning.
Yes.
And AutoCAD. This has to be like, no, you have to produce, go with them, produce, and then come back. Because now they've got a luxury. घर पे बैठे आराम से AC में बैठ के काम करो. No, it doesn't happen. You have to be with the craftsman. You have to make a prototype. 5 times it will break. Then you know how it works. In rendering and this thing doesn't work.
I know. That's great. Okay, that's great. I think I got to everyone and their question. However, sometimes when you're trying to do 10 things at one time, it got a bit tricky. So I'll hand it over to Colonel Sanjeev. Over to you, Mr. Sanjeev.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sanjay, for the wonderful session on industrial design and Indian craft. It looks like we have finished all the questions, Sanjay.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yeah, anything else to be covered?
Yeah, we are good to go, sir.
Yeah. So, Mr. Solanki, I must confess, it is indeed a revelation to see so many innovative bamboo hangers. I have never seen that in life. And it is indeed difficult to do design, but easy to live with it. So, thank you everyone. Thank you very much, all the esteemed panelists. It was a pleasure being with you for today's session. We appreciate you being here. Thanks again for joining with us, and we'll again connect with you. Jai Hind. Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you all.
Thank you,
Thank you, Dipesh.
Thank you, Mr.